Welcome to Momma-sota, the podcast where we dive headfirst into the beautiful mess of motherhood. I'm your host, Monica Eickman, and I'm here to keep it real. In a world that changes by the minute, parenting can often feel like an uphill battle. We all want what's best for our children, but what that best looks like varies for every one of us. Momma-sota is your passport to the unfiltered, unapologetic world of mommy. No perfectly edited snapshots or unattainable ideals here. We're here to share the ups and downs, the triumphs and tantrums, the mess and the beauty of being a mom. Join me as we explore the raw and authentic side of parenting. This is your safe space to vent, laugh, and learn as we navigate the unpredictable journey of raising strong, capable, and independent children for the future. Hey mamas, welcome to today's episode of Momma-sota. It's me, your host, Monica Eickman. I am a stay-at-home mom of 3 crazy children, and today a bit of crazy has rubbed off on me. I talk about the beautiful chaos that is parenting, so bear with me on this episode as we record on the road at a tiny cabin in Cross Lake. I'm banking on the younger 2 napping in one room, setting up the oldest with a movie, while I sit in my car during a thunderstorm, hoping the internet connection will remain strong. Joining us today is special guest Jen Bourbeau. She, like many of us moms, is on her own journey to rebuilding and rediscovering herself. I often hear new moms talking about losing themselves after becoming a mom and trying to navigate their new bodies. From what to wear, both because they are a mom and because their body has changed, to looking in the mirror and accepting the changes you see looking back at you. Becoming a mom presents so many transformations. Welcome, Jen, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so mom or not, body image is something that so many can relate to. We're going to explore all that surrounds that. But before we do, Jen, tell us more about you and your family as it stands.
Yeah. So I'm a mom to 3 amazing kids, and my oldest is 13. She's a girl. It's always fun to say she's a girl. So I have a 13-year-old girl, a 10-year-old boy. I know, I always feel, I don't know why I'm like, my oldest is 13 and she's a girl, a 10-year-old boy. And then I have a 19-month-old daughter as well. I always like to clarify months because people are like, did you mean years? I'm like, no, months. So we have a spread, which is super fun and adds a lot of life and character to our house. So that's kind of my family. I'm married to my amazing husband, and we are just totally figuring out life as a blended family. And I work full time in aviation, and then I love to coach women on their health and wellness journey, and just kind of like you said, that it's just like becoming a mom is so incredibly topsy-turvy. I feel like so many of us, I always wanted to be a mom, but the challenges are far beyond what I ever imagined. Now trying to be like my own person and feel really confident in my skin, be a good role model for my kids, and also have that relationship with my husband. Like it's a really dynamic area of life. And so I fell into coaching within the past couple of years, and it's just been a great way for me to connect with people and really understand how many women struggle with this idea of identity and who they are and what that looks like, whether they're a mom or not, but so strongly when you are a mom.
Definitely. With, like you said, the body image piece of it is so much, there's so many factors and so many components. It's like we're definitely in an age where there's more like body positivity and acceptance, but I think sometimes too that can go too far in another direction. And so we've got like the pull from Hollywood and that sort of norm, and then we have like a true societal norm when we look around us. We've got, whether or not your husband or boyfriend, partner loves your new body, loves your old body, loves both your bodies, but then it's still just your own, like you said, your own self looking in the mirror and what you see. And so with that, like I said, there's so many pulls in all those different directions. So you're passionate about empowering women to live their best lives. And how does that passion then translate into your approach with nurturing body positivity and image?
So I feel like this is such a holistic, and when I say holistic, meaning, every aspect of your life, it comes into when I talk about like living a energetic, fulfilled life, comes into this idea of, yes, feeling great in your clothes, of course. Also having energy, being able to sustain the demands that the world is putting on us as moms in terms of just like energy, having good sleep, hormonal balance, all of those things like on the internal side. And then, being clear headed, being like not having the brain fog, not just relying on Starbucks. I mean, I think like Starbucks took on a whole new life too, where like having a Starbucks cup is like a status symbol. Walking around like, oh, this is my third cup of coffee today. And it's like, in theory, you really shouldn't need that much. Yeah, I drink a lot of coffee because I love it. And I'm not shaming coffee drinkers, but like when you start to feel your body the way that it needs to be for sustainability for all of the activities that your life demands, it's a totally different, like, it's a game changer. So I really like this idea of empowering people to recognize like movement is medicine and food is fuel, and how you choose to integrate in that into your life can be a seasonal thing. And when I say seasonal, obviously we live in Minnesota, so it can actually be seasonal. Like, what does your activity and food look like in the winter versus the summer? It can be seasonal, like COVID, what did that look like? Or you have a new baby, what does that look like? Or going back to school or summer, like all of those areas of life create a different challenge and dynamic. But with that, I feel really strongly in encouraging women to recognize that taking a hold of your health and wellness, there's never a good time. It's kind of like investing in your 401k. Like, when was the best time to decide that you matter, you're important, and that idea is so much more valuable than anybody can ever say. I was at my son's hockey tournament this winter. It's January. We're staying in a hotel. Not a single mom is in the pool with the kids. And all I can think is just like all these women who feel anxious and depressed and sad that they don't want to get into a bathing suit around other people and not participate. And it just breaks my heart when it's like, this is something that we can control. There's so much stuff that we can control. And this idea that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I'm not one to be like, here's a restrictive diet or don't do this, or, it's like, what is a sustainable lifestyle? And how is that going to work for your family? And what does that look like to not be a short order chef where you're having to make 5 different meals? I had 3 kids and a husband and myself. It's like, I don't want to make 5 different meals. And what does it look like in terms of integrating, movement into your daily activity? Is that sustainable right now? What does that look like? So it's like, I like to kind of, with my, women that I'm coaching, is really understand like, what is your life? What are your goals? What's your timeline? And what's your commitment level? And you can kind of start to break down what things people are looking for. Because sometimes, it's like, it's my 40th birthday. I'm looking to have, look smoking in this dress. And sometimes it's, I'm 55 and I want to be able to get off the floor without pains, or I'm coming off of chemo and radiation. Like, that's where my journey started. And I had gained a bunch of weight and lost complete control of just this idea of like food and all of that. So your starting point looks so different and your goals look so different. So it's just a really powerful place to be in. And it's so vulnerable. Like, women are putting most vulnerable things that you can imagine, and they're talking about it, which I just think I'm so grateful for the opportunity when people are willing to talk about it, because it's really close to the chest for sure.
I think too, when you mentioned like all the moms, they're all sitting on the side of the pool, clothed. No one wants to get in the swimsuit. No one wants to participate. You would think that would look around and everyone would kind of have this moment that like, oh, we're on the same team and we all feel this way. But I think everyone's so busy just in their own head looking at themselves that they're not realizing that everyone is in the same boat.
Absolutely.
And it's just, if we could build that community and look around and be like, I'm not in my swimsuit. You're not in your swimsuit. You're not in your swimsuit. What are we all feeling? What are we all thinking that none of us is comfortable? And how could we move forward together, sort of thing?
Yeah, community is so incredibly powerful. And I think we learned, I want to say we knew that before COVID, but I feel like we really learned that during COVID when we recognized how much community got taken away from us. And so I'm a huge advocate for building community around, your health and wellness journey, and finding those people that are like-minded, that are going to encourage you in challenging moments, and they're going to be there for your highs and your lows, because like they've made the commitment as well that they're worth it. And when you start surrounding yourself around other women who sit there and they're like, I'm worth it. Like, me taking 30 minutes to move my body today is not selfish, it's selfless. It means that I'm choosing to fill my tank so I can pour into other people, so I can be a better mother, so I can be a better coworker, so I can be a better, spouse, friend, whatever, like, ice hockey schedule or whatever that is, but it's like that time. It's almost like when moms have like 1 kid to 2 kids, it's like it's not twice the amount of work, it's like 3 times the amount of work. It's the same with like it's not 30 minutes from your day that's going to just take away 30 minutes. Like you're repurposing that 30 minutes to give yourself 2 hours later in the day. It's like the weirdest math. It's girl math at its finest ultimately. And I get it's really, really challenging. And so I have a variety of like, little tips with people for different things. Like, it's scientifically proven you do not have to do 30 minutes of movement in a row, right? Like, and 30 minutes of movement is like a great, just like ballpark, because I mean, that can be a walk. That can be going and running bases with your kid. That can be, doing jump rope and hula hoop and jumping jacks for 10 minutes with your littles, and then maybe you go on a nice walk after lunch, and then you do like a 10-minute core circuit, and now all of a sudden you've gotten 30 minutes of movement in during the day. And those 10 minutes that you said, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes, the people around you start to recognize like you made a promise to yourself and you're going to do that, and they start treating that promise you make to yourself as a level of respect. Like, I said I'm doing this, I'm following through. And now people look at that completely differently. I will say that's one of the biggest things that I'll say with my clients is like, put it in your calendar and follow through with it, because not only will you be so proud of yourself for doing it, but also people will start to recognize like, oh, when she says she's going to do this, she does it. And that's what it is. It's a non-negotiable. Like, and so they create your time as a level of respect to you. I feel like so often as moms, we're constantly triaging for everybody else. And it's like, you matter too.
Definitely. When you were talking about like breaking up the time and the increments, and that it doesn't have to be the thought of like, I'm lifting weights or running on the treadmill, like it doesn't have to be that actual exercise. It just made me think like, I know it's silly, but it's small things sometimes. Like I'll think in my head to my middle child, I'm about to ask her to like run upstairs and grab me a diaper to change the baby, and then I'll be like, well, if I just go and grab that diaper myself because I'm not doing anything, I'm like, that's just like maybe another calorie burn. It's just-
Totally. It is so small, but I'm a huge advocate for tiny changes add up. They do. It's you look at any before and after photo of somebody who's had success long term, right? It's that they chose whatever their first step is. The first step is the hardest, right? It's choosing to do this lifestyle adjustment, or it's choosing to drink one less pop. It's choosing to add one more glass of water. It's choosing to replace, raisins with actual grapes, choosing one less drink. It's whatever it is, but that choice. And it's like those tiny choices add up. Like when I have clients who come to me and they basically just say like, cold turkey, it's January 1st, I'm not doing all these things. And I'm just like, if you fundamentally believe that this is the way that you are going to get the life you want, I don't know that I'm the right person for you, because foundationally, my goal is to have this sustainable. Like, if you love Diet Coke, like I loved Diet Coke after college, there's no way that sustainability would be like, well, I'm going to go from drinking 6 Diet Cokes in a day to never having a Diet Coke again. Like, when you're talking long term. So, like, what is the small things to do to make lasting changes? So, like you say, okay, well, I'm just going to run up and grab that diaper. Okay, you do that once, and then you start to be like, okay, the baby and I are going to go for a quick walk. Okay, so that was 5 minutes. Cool. You know what? Instead of having that bag of goldfish or Cheez-Its, maybe I'll grab an apple. Okay, if I grabbed an apple, maybe I'm not going to watch that second episode of whatever, Love is Blind, and I'm going to go to sleep 15 minutes earlier. And when I wake up, I'm going to drink a cup of water. And it's like all these habit stackings create the life that you want, and they're tiny, but they matter.
I do. And I love that you talk about like rejecting the extremes, both just all across, both in the fitness side and on the food side. But you also emphasize nourishing your body with enough food. Can you go into that a little bit more? Because I think that's another one of those extremes is the calorie deficit.
100%. So a few things. One is I tend to encourage people to understand I'm more of a fat loss coach versus a weight loss coach. As a person, so I'm 39, pushing 40s. I grew up with skinny minis, and I'm not a skinny mini. Like, I was an athlete. I got thighs and a booty, and like I'm just not built like that. Like I am not the long limbed, like boho dresses look so cute on me because my arms and fingers are so, slender. That's just not me. And so this idea of the scale, like quite honestly, I've always been like my BMI is off the charts. And it's like, so I get this idea that we're fixated on the number on the scale. The number on the scale does not define you. It doesn't give you validation or merit in anything in life, whether that's how you should feel about yourself or how somebody else should feel about you. However, I do fundamentally agree with the idea of having a strong body, and strong bodies are very different depending on where you are in life. If you're coming off of postpartum strength, you may be the most mentally strong you've ever been being pregnant and birthing a child. And like that is empowering. So now you're getting your physical strength back. You know what I mean? The number on the scale is not important. I'm a huge advocate for how your clothes fit and how you feel in them as a great indicator on whether you're like, I'm feeling good about this, not am I a size 12? Am I a size 6? Like it's not about that. It's about how you feel in them. So with that being said, I do like to clarify that I tend to be on the fat loss side for things. And it's just so important for that empowerment for women to kind of determine like what does that look like where they are in that phase of life and what that looks like and what that success looks like for them. So from a calorie deficit perspective, I think that so many people get into this like 100-calorie pack, 100-calorie bar. I'm going to eat this, air quotes protein bar that says that it, has 19 grams of protein and this is so great. And ultimately, it's all these prepackaged foods, and our body is just not meant to metabolize them at the same caliber that we're metabolizing whole food nutrition. And so many women come to me and they're like, so I had 2 eggs for breakfast and I had a salad for lunch and 3 ounces of chicken for dinner and roasted veggies. And I was in the gym for an hour today and I did Orange Theory and I'm going to go for a run this afternoon. And I'm like, how are you sleeping? Like, how do you feel? Like, how's your energy? And people are like, I feel constantly depleted, feel my mind feels foggy, feel engaged with people. I feel easily distracted or irritated and all these things. And I'm like, okay, so again, this all or nothing. Let's start breaking down how much protein are we eating at each meal. And when I start to break it down and I'm like, okay, so you're eating maybe 20 grams of protein at a meal. So you're maybe getting 60 grams a day. Let's shoot for whatever your goal weight is. So whatever that looks like, and I only use weight just because that's an easy, like round number. So if you want to be 150 pounds, whatever you are, do 10 grams of protein for whatever that is. So you should be shooting for like 150 grams of protein a day. Now, I don't ever encourage my clients to go from like 60 grams of protein a day to 150. So it's like the small things with like, okay, so you're having 2 eggs. Awesome. Can we add a third egg? Can we add some sausage, bacon, whatever else, a yogurt? I do a smoothie every morning. It's a great way for me to add 20 grams of protein in that. It's like starting these slow things. And then people start to recognize like, wow, I feel better. I'm like, yeah, I bet you do feel better because you're eating enough. Now let's start talking about carbs. And it's like, let's not hate on carbs. Carbs are a source of fuel for our bodies, just like fat is. Our bodies need carbs, fat, and protein to function. Fundamentally, let's go back
Right.
to
Scientifically
caveman.
proven.
Yes, exactly. And like, I'm not even going to tackle like sugar or anything else at the beginning because fundamentally, I just want to get people to start to recognize like you're likely not eating enough food. This idea of like 1,200 calories, and then people are like, "Well, I'm doing these, high intensity workouts and all this stuff," and I'm like, "So your body's been in a calorie deficit now for 7 years. I see why it's holding on to that belly fat." Let's start fueling your body for the body that you want. Let's add some strength training in there. And like the amount of energy that your body is literally going to be producing, it's going to burn calories so much longer after. So easy things to add like protein in, and not even like snacks, but eggs. I know, if you're an egg person, there's so many things you can do with eggs. You can add egg whites to like, we have the kids, we all love fried rice. that's a super easy dinner for us. You can double the chicken or the pork, whatever meat you put in there, double that. You can add eggs or egg whites in there. That's a great way to add extra protein to things. I tend to lend on the dairy-free side. I am an advocate for it, but it's also not a make it or break it. Cottage cheese is obviously a great source of protein, as well as protein powders. There's just all these different ways that you can add protein in, as well as like looking at our snacks. Like, okay, naturally the quickest snacks are going to be carbs and dairy, right? So what are the snacks that you can grab, like a beef stick or beef jerky or hard-boiled eggs, or yogurt with as less sugar as possible? But also sometimes when I talk to my clients, especially when they're traveling, it's like, are you choosing an option that is better than what you would have chosen? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, that's a win. That's a major win. Like, let's call that, you know what I mean? Like, going back to the small things, it's
Yeah.
like, what's sustainable? Like, you're going to the pool with your family, and what's the easiest thing to grab? Probably a bag of chips, right? Well, can you throw like an apple in there too? Like, that's amazing. And I think as moms, I know I feel like I'm failing every day at everything in life. And so it's like, let's rise up and be so proud of the small changes that we're making, because it does matter. And nothing changes when nothing changes. So it might seem small to be like, I packed an apple to go to the pool, as well as my Cheetos or Cheez-Its or Doritos, or, name your chip of choice. Like, that's amazing. Be proud of that.
Right, because I think a lot of times, like you said, is that a better option than the bag of chips and the bag of fruit snacks?
Exactly, 100%. And when we start making small changes, it also doesn't shock the kids either. When they're used to being like, well, I always have all my snacks prepackaged. And now it's like, okay, I would say kind of this idea of body positivity and trying to, encourage and enlighten the next generation is that it's like, there's a place for packaged food. Don't get me wrong. Like, we travel a lot. I have 3 kids. Like, I get it for sure. But also getting them to recognize that like whole food nutrition is just as quick, just as easy. And honestly, I know I'm going to probably get a little backlash from this, but like, some of it's pretty cost effective as well. Like, if you're choosing things that are in season, like an apple in the fall is pretty cost effective. Now, raspberries in the winter, you might be paying more. It's like this idea of, cycling through things. And when we start to do that and be like, oh, okay, yeah, we bring an apple to the pool, the kids are like, oh, okay, cool. This is just what we do. We just eat an apple at the pool. Like, and
Right.
it's just like not a big deal. And that's like just there's so yeah, I like just kind of like slowly integrating that stuff into families and recognizing like nothing needs to be so extreme.
Oh, and I want to reiterate that the healthy options can be cost effective. So my husband, we've just come to the agreement that he cannot go grocery shopping off of my grocery list. I'll write out the fruits and vegetables that I think I want to purchase. And then when I get to the store, they all change based on whatever the prices are and the sales are.
Yeah,
And it's like,
for
your list
sure.
doesn't- He's like, you just wrote berries. What do you want? And I'm like, well, I don't know until I get to the store. I'm going to look at the raspberries and the strawberries and the blueberries and see which one has the best pricing today.
Absolutely, 100%. I totally agree. And there'll be times that like my husband and I equally kind of shop. And honestly, we do a lot more shopping just with like placing our grocery order, because food prices are so astronomical. I just like have like a mental breakdown. I feel like when I get to the store and I'm like, I don't even know how we spent this much money. Like, I don't feel like we bought anything crazy or extreme, or we're shopping at really expensive grocery stores. So like now at home, we'll be like, okay, yeah, we're cool with this, because it's like you have a plan. And like you said, you go there and you're like, I'm not going to spend $20 on grapes. Like, the poundage for grapes gets me every time. Like, my kids will like put the things in the cart and I was like, you better weigh that. They're like, how do I weigh it? I'm like, okay, see the scale over here from like the 80s? You put your grapes in there because you got to see if you're spending $16 on these bad boys.
Grapes get me too every time.
Every time, like Costco, I'm like, good, base price. Awesome. This whole container is this price. I do better with that versus the price per poundage.
So you have the unique, you kind of have a big age range. You said 19 months.
Yep. The baby's 19 months. Exactly.
And that's a girl.
That's a girl. She's a girl. Yeah.
And then oldest is, you said 13?
13. Yes.
And a girl, and then middle boy at 10.
Yep.
So we want to obviously help our children, like you said, make those healthy choices, but still maintain, like you said, body positivity. That doesn't necessarily mean you're that skinny mini, because I was the same thing. Big thighs, muscular build. But how do you approach, especially I guess with your 13-year-old, because she's right in the midst of all of that, talking about health, but creating a positive experience around that?
Yeah, great question. So I look at it. So first of all, I follow. So the program that I follow is called the Faster Way to Fat Loss, and we macro track in there, which just basically means that like I have personalized macros and I give my clients personalized macros, which means that they have a percentage of fats, carbs, and proteins that they eat throughout the day. And the first step is kind of starting to track, meaning like see how much nutrition is in each of these things. So you can start to see how you feel optimally the best is the goal, right? It's not about shaming or being like, how many calories was this? It's literally to be like, did I eat enough? So often, again, we don't. So the kids are used to kind of watching me do this. And I do a lot of weighing food because I want to make sure I'm eating enough. It's so often that I'll be like, as a family of five, right? And grocery prices are high. So we'll buy bigger containers of things like, let's say, yogurt, cottage cheese, nuts, whatever it is, right? More in that bulk perspective. If I just throw it in my bowl, often it's way under the serving size. Now, peanut butter, often way over the serving size. And so and it's like, and that's okay. That's part of learning, right? And it's like, and knowledge is power. I'm a huge advocate for knowledge is power. This is not like when I talk to my clients about like, let's macro track, I was terrified when I started. I was worried that I was just gonna like I just had like this huge internal like angst in it. And, ultimately really realized that I was like, wow, okay, it's powerful because now I can see, wow, I was only going to eat like a half a serving of yogurt, or like this is what a cup of berries looks like, or nuts. I love nuts, but like I could eat a whole bag, and like that's not always the healthiest. And so if I'm trying to make a healthier decision, knowing how much things are. So with the kids, a lot of times we do have them weigh their food so that way they can see, especially my middle, he's a lighter eater. And so he will like throw some yogurt in a bowl and he'll weigh it and he'll be like, shoot, I definitely underdid that one. So now it's kind of like they're starting to see like what does a normal portion size look like? And so they can see like, especially when they're going to school. And it's like, okay, you don't have snacks available. Like, so you need to eat enough to sustain your brain power, your energy, and all of that to lunchtime. And then, the quality of lunches, don't even get me started on that. And so it's like we know that they're not getting a ton of nutrition there. So starting their day off really well with that and starting to get them to that point. Have the kids, when I say reading nutrition labels, I am really coming at this from like a way of just saying you have to start somewhere. And quite frankly, I started as an adult when I gained like my and I'll say weight loss journey. It wasn't just a fat loss. Like I had gained a bunch of weight after college and I was married to my first husband. We used to fly for the airline. So I was traveling 100% and I gained an amount of weight that made me really, really uncomfortable. And I didn't ever read a nutrition label. I didn't know what a serving size was. I didn't know any of that stuff. Like what are quality ingredients? Like I grew up in the 80s. We ate Taco Bell and McDonald's and all this stuff. So like I had to learn from the very, very, very basics. And so just getting the kids to start to look at this stuff, it's just an introduction. That's all I like to do for them is just like okay, how many sausages is a serving size? And the kids are like, I don't know, good question. And then they'll look and they're like, oh, three. Okay, so like frozen meatballs, like how many is a serving size when they're making their lunch? Like how many meatballs should I have, mom? I'm like, okay, well, what's a serving size and what did you have for breakfast? And they can start to recognize how it comes together and how protein is important. So like, okay, what did you have for breakfast if you're making lunch, or what did you have for lunch if you're making dinner? So that way they can start to see. And then a lot of times we'll be like, how did you feel after you ate enough? Like, okay, so we went skiing, right? And the kids got like a hot dog and that was all they ate and they just felt terrible. And they were like, I just ate a hot dog and I didn't feel the best. And I was like, do you think maybe you should have had something else? Like, yeah, I probably should have had a burger too. Like, I'm like, yeah, maybe so they start to recognize like leaning into how does the food make you feel and what does that do for you? Like, that's a big thing, especially with, I would say my 13-year-old is like, Starbucks, all the sugar, the Gatorades, all that stuff, when it's like you get to the end of the day and she's like, I don't feel the best. And I'm like, okay, like let's go through what you ate. And then she'll be like, well, I had a Starbucks and I had an icy at the movies, and then I had popcorn, and then I went to the gas station with my friends, and then I had pizza. And I'm like, okay, so maybe we try to like have some chicken and apple and see if that makes you feel any better. And, drink some water and that stuff. So that mind body connection, it has to be developed. Like we're not all instinctually born with that. So it's just introduction of things for sure. And having them recognize the value of the nourishment that the food is giving you and the quality of the food. And kind of, we talk a lot about like why we choose to eat certain foods different times, or why when we choose to go organic or when we don't choose to go organic, because like it's expensive, and we talk
It is,
about
yeah.
that. Like
Yeah.
like we would love to eat, all these things, and I'm like, we just, quite frankly, that's just not, we can't always do that and have the other aspects of our life that we want to.
I would say again, it comes with like the extremes and the sustainability and finding the balance, and is it still a better option than what I would have done, otherwise. I love too that everything you just discussed in terms of having that conversation with your children, we didn't talk about like how much fat is in there, how much calories is it, how much sugar is it, and we didn't talk about like eating this makes you fat, or eating this makes you
Yeah.
but you're talking about that feeling, because I think so often, like you said, even as an adult, especially if you didn't grow up having any of these conversations, is you get to the end of the day and you're like, I feel sluggish, or I feel an upset stomach, or I have a headache. And if you can look back and then think about, what did I give my body? And it's not necessarily even like you said that you gave yourself bad food. You just didn't give yourself enough food.
Absolutely. 100%. And learning how to kind of find that balance too. And when I used to say this at work and people were like, this is so not normal. I'd be like, I feel like my eyes are bleeding. And they're like, what? And I'm like, that's how I felt. Like I felt that tired and lethargic. And I started to recognize I'm feeling that way when I haven't eaten enough carbs. Like that is for sure. So I'm like, all right. And that's where I know for me, I'm like, this is a great time for me to have like some sweet potatoes or some beans, or, apple or a banana or something like that. And quite frankly, when it's gotten to that point, I'm pretty depleted. And so I'm going to have to eat enough of them to actually feel better and get over this fear about being like, am I eating too many of this? You know what I mean? Because it's like, it's not about that. It's about the fact that like, I don't feel good right now. And I don't feel like I'm, especially when it was happening at work, I don't feel like I'm producing the work product that my employer expects. And I don't want to, like, that's not, I'm not comfortable with that either. You know what I mean? I think that like, that's the other thing, is just knowing that it's like, okay, this took years. I tell this to people all the time. Like, I did not learn this overnight. Like, I just don't have that natural, like, instinctual understanding of my body personally. And I think it just gets to that point that you start to like take enough time to just recognize, like you just said, where you're like, okay, I just need to like take a minute and think back and recognize maybe this is, and try something, try it. If you feel a certain way and you tried something and that didn't work, okay, try something different.
Yeah, and we definitely, with our children, like they're always watching us. We lead by example, but being able to like have, like you said, have those conversations. And again, like you said too, the knowledge is power. It's not that our kids need to be so hung up on every single label, every single thing. But if we're not giving them the tools to understand that, and then like you said, they get into adulthood and they're dealing with any sort of weight issue, especially if it's, a mom after having a baby and gaining a bunch of weight, there's no starting point for them because they don't have any of that information.
100%. And it's been really interesting. Demographic of people that I've been working more with is the kids who are graduating high school, going to college, and the kids that are ending college, moving on to their professional life because they're really struggling with the what's next. So the high school kids that, whether they were at home and maybe they always, they had more control over their food environment being at home, whether their metabolism was different and now, it's starting to change, whatever that looks like. But starting to recognize how few of these younger generations actually really know anything about food, it's like we just have to start somewhere, right? It's just the introduction. That's all that it is. And like you start, and some people it's like, you know, and I like to say to the kids these days, you know, I'm like, you have to eat every day. So you may as well figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Cause it's like, it is just part of life. And like with my kids, you know, I required them to go to cooking camp for a variety of years because I was like, you're going to have to learn how to make your own meals somehow. So, like, this is a life skill, you know, and I'll be the first to say on Friday nights, I'm exhausted. And we have pancakes and eggs quite often because Brinner is such a great way. It's family friendly. Like the Kodiak protein pancakes are a great way. You can add some milk for extra protein. You can add eggs. I personally love chocolate chips in there and have some eggs on the side. And it's like, it's a well balanced meal. You know, it's super easy, but it's like just getting the kids to recognize like you can make real easy food, real cost effective, and still like taste good and be nutritious. So, like, that's I mean, like, that's a college meal for sure, right? Pancakes and eggs. Like, you know what I mean? But it's just like getting the kids to recognize like they're, you know, it can be easy, it can be simple, it can be cost effective, but they don't know that yet. And if kids have never had to cook for themselves, you know, and they don't know how that is, or they've never had to like balance out their plate a little bit, you know, it's like I haven't even gotten into like fruits and vegetables with all this stuff because quite frankly, it's like that comes later, right? The first few things are just like that basic introduction of education.
So another part you kind of touched on briefly before was that it's not all about your weight or that number on the scale, but feeling good in your clothes. And you kind of in our pre-interview area talk about like capsule wardrobes, and I know that's a big thing right now on social media. Can you talk about some of that with body image and fitting in your clothes and everything?
Yeah, so capsule wardrobes to me is like so honestly, I found capsule wardrobes and the faster way to fat loss both on Instagram like years ago, and I'm like, there's so many things with social media that are negative, and there are so many things that are positive. So
Mhm.
I was really struggling after I had my oldest daughter, you know, with like, I mean, I was 26 when I had her. So I would say in general, I was on the younger side. So like my clothes reflected a younger lifestyle. And then now I had this baby and my body completely changed and I gained weight and all this stuff. And I'm like, every time I was getting dressed, I just felt worse and worse and worse about myself for so many reasons. Like these clothes that I used to wear and I mean, I wasn't even like a clubber or anything, but just like the clothes I used to wear before having a baby are no longer relevant, let alone they don't fit me. And then I try them on and I feel more depressed because I miss my old life and they don't fit and all these things. So I ended up finding capsule wardrobe that way. And it starts out with just this idea of going through all of your clothes and fundamentally the beginning of it is just like only keep what fits you in your current stage. Now, I'm not saying you have to get rid of everything. Only having clothes that you feel great in your closet. So when you open your closet doors, you know everything fits, everything works for this season of life. And when I say season in Minnesota, right, that sometimes means that's like when I open my closet right now, it's all summer stuff. In the winter, I don't have my summer stuff in there because that just doesn't make sense, right? That like so you want it to like spark joy and you want to be able to get dressed effortlessly, meaning that you're not putting something on and being like, oh, I have to wear a special bra for this. And I don't have that bra. Or like, oh, I hate how my tummy looks in this. Or these are only my standing jeans. Or I have to have these special shoes that I can't wear in the winter, right? Like all of these little things. So you start to build this wardrobe. So that way it's like, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be impressive. It could literally be a pair of jeans that you feel confident in and like 3 shirts and functional shoes and like a baseball hat, and you're like, "Every time I put these items on though, I feel really good." And that's so powerful, especially I feel like when you're going through a transition in life because everything else already feels really like off kilter and like postpartum, right, is such a great example where you're just struggling with like what fits, what doesn't fit, and you know, you just like you start to body shame yourself. Even if you're proud of what your body has accomplished, it still has transitioned a lot. And so to be able to like say, okay, you know what, these one pair of jeans they fit my lifestyle right now. I can get up off the floor, I can nurse in them, I can go to the park in them, I can do whatever. And it's like now when you're getting dressed, you're not starting your day out in like a depressive state, right? You're not starting
Yep.
to pick yourself apart. Like we do that enough as is. So when you're getting dressed and you're like, you're not just sitting there being like, oh, this shirt is, it just looks terrible on me. And you have to like change 5 different times because you're like, nothing makes you feel good is like so powerful. And then you add in the next layer to me is like, does that work in the season of life? Like if you are on maternity leave, take all of your clothes that you would wear at the office like out of your closet. So you're not stressed about like, well, that shirt doesn't fit me right now, or that's just not part of my life. Like if you're in athleisure mode, like have your closet reflect like 80% of what your life is, right? And again, I'm not the biggest advocate for just getting rid of things because I do think things ebb and flow. Like I have plenty of clothes that I'm like, I'm currently not using this, but that doesn't mean that I need to get rid of it, but it doesn't need to be in my like visible space.
I like that. Because I think a lot of when you hear some of those, even just like way back on like what not to wear when everything's just like garbage, 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 garbage. When's the last time you wore that garbage? And it's like, well, that's not necessarily like you said. I'm on maternity leave, but I am going to be going back to the office. But I'm not going to the office right now. So, whether that's 6 weeks or 6 months, that can, definitely change. And then you're, feel like you're starting to.
Yeah, and I mean the other two things that I love about that is one is it gives you the chance to feel refreshed with your clothes. So like you get to shop your closet more. And just as a person who, has been through a variety of life events where, finances have been tight and different things like that, it's nice when you can like be like open up. So I keep my like spare clothes in just like a storage container type thing, like a clear bin or whatever that is. And when I pull them out, I'm so excited because I'm like, oh, that's right. I forgot about this. I forgot about this. And so instead of inspiring me to be like, I've got to go shopping or I saw this on social media or now this is the newest trend, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, this is like, it sounds dumb, but like shopping your own closet and getting reinvigorated with that. And clothes may fit you different in 6 months' time, right? And so then you put something on and you really could see your progress, which is super exciting. And I also feel like when I was at my lowest point, I would try to deflect when I didn't feel good in clothes by like maybe overspending on other areas of my life, like skincare or makeup or whatever else, just trying to find anything to make myself feel better. And then once I started having like the clothes in my closet that fit and worked, I just didn't have that urge to be like, to try to fill the void with something else.
One trend that we've kind of come back on, whether we're talking about the food or the exercise or the clothes, is that feeling. And I think that's so important for everyone to kind of hear again is it might be that you were a size 10 pre-pregnancy and even post-pregnancy you might still be a size 10, but where that has shifted and how you feel, like you said, as I wasn't a mom before at 26 and I am a mom now at 26, that might just change that way. Like, oh, I felt comfortable before in my short shorts with low rise, and now I'm still the same size, but I'm going out with my baby and I feel more comfortable with a longer short or high waisted or, whatever that might be, coming back to that feeling component.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because another thing that I tell my teenage daughter all the time, she's getting ready for different things. And I'm like, if you feel confident in this, you'll look a lot more attractive to yourself and to others. Because when you feel confident in something, people can feel that too. So if you feel more confident in like longer shorts and a higher rise, like you're going to give that vibe versus wearing, it's like there is the thing that it's like, it is confidence is so sexy and empowering in all capacities of life. Do you know what I mean? Like when you feel that and then other people feel it and sense it and they want that feeling too for themselves.
Well, and then that comes back around to like fuel your confidence more again, because it's like people are engaging and people are smiling because you're smiling. It's just like that whole thing.
It is. And it all stems from, I like it's all these tiny little things, but like having clothes that make you feel really great. And I'm not talking like anything needs to be super expensive or anything else. It's literally just like I guarantee you have 5 things in your wardrobe, wherever that is, that you feel great in. right? And just wearing those and then going out and feeling great in those things. Nobody cares if you wear the same things over and over again. This idea, I'm not the biggest fan of like, well, I took a picture in this, last week. I can't wear it again. I'm like, I don't know. I think there's nothing cooler than when you see somebody wearing like something so simple and every time you're like, you look so like confident in that. Like I think that that's so great. It's like, who cares if you wear it over and over again? I don't know. That's not important to me. How you
No,
feel is so much more important.
I love that because I think, again, that comes down to some of that like social media pressure because we are posting pictures because that person probably didn't even see you at the wedding last summer. But, like we're so
Absolutely.
pressured by needing a new outfit or someone, like you said, someone might have saw me in it. But if you put it on and you feel comfortable and confident, like you said, I think that's what people are going to recognize. And I think even just a test of that is like, think about like, oh, I saw my best friend yesterday. What was she wearing? Do you remember?
Totally. Right. Absolutely not. 100%. Unless you go and you're in like the same outfit. I don't know if that's ever happened to you and your best friend, but like I'll go over there and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're totally wearing the same thing. And it's like, and to me, that just cracks me up because I'm like, of course we would be wearing the same thing because that's just like how life is, right? And I don't know. So it just cracks me up. But yes, totally. Like people, and I just think so often we think that people are looking at us more than we actually are. And that's why I'm so focused on having women, focus on themselves. How do you look? How do you feel? What's important to you? Because like, let's stop focusing on what you think other people are looking at or thinking at because they're probably focused on themselves. They don't have time to focus on you. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like
Yep.
kind of who's looking back in the mirror and make yourself proud. Like to me as a mother, challenging myself and putting myself out there, and even if I'm failing, having my kids see that and learning I have to pick myself back up or how things are challenging or whatever. And like you had said earlier, it's like they're sponges and they learn from watching us. It's like when you respect yourself, they're going to learn how to respect themselves. Like, you know what I mean? When you choose things that you say, I'm choosing to nourish my body this way because I respect my body and I'm grateful for everything my body has done for me, like whatever it is, growing the tiny humans, birthing them, all of the things, driving them everywhere and all that stuff, they start to think, wow, that's really cool. My mom does that. I probably want to be like that too. If my mom respects her body, like I'm going to respect my body as well. And those little things just trickle in, right? Again, tiny, tiny pieces of awareness make the biggest difference in the long term. Like I think you had somebody on your podcast and they had said how many weekends you have with your kids. And it's like, all those little things matter, it does. And it's like, so it doesn't, it's like, it's a big ask to say we're trying to get the kids prepared for the world, but also, everything, you just break it down into smaller bite-sized pieces, like pun intended, I guess. Do you know what I mean? That it's like just kind of breaking everything down. So that way it's bite-sized for us as parents, because I like to tell my kids, like, I've never done this before. Like I'm just trying to figure it out, just like they're trying to figure it out. So let's do this together and learn that we're not going to do it perfect, but we're going to try. We're going to try really hard.
Yeah. I want to pull that piece out. And I think that's a high note to kind of wrap up on is make yourself proud and remembering and realizing that people are looking at you, but people are not scrutinizing you as much as you think they are because you're sitting there scrutinizing yourself, not everyone else also. So just remembering that, yeah, make yourself proud and go from there.
Absolutely.
Well, then on that note, Jen, any last piece of advice you want to give to our listeners?
Man, I just feel so encouraged for this next generation. I love that women are starting to be okay with this idea of changing kind of the food culture and the diet culture and leaning in so differently. I also love that, we're kind of leaning into like this sourdough era where it's like, let's make things from home. Let's build those memories and connections. And I'm just really excited for what that's going to do for this next generation, especially coming out after COVID. I think our kids have really been through a lot. We've been through a lot as a parental group, and I'm excited to see the changes. And I'm really hopeful that, we can have conversations with our kids and they can have a better relationship with food and their bodies and all of that moving forward. So I'm encouraged that this is even a conversation because, again, we have to start somewhere.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jen, so much. This was a great chat. And to all the mamas out there listening, just remember, start with yourself, fuel yourself, make yourself proud. And until next time, keep doing your best.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on this roller coaster of momming right here on Momma-sota. I hope you enjoyed our candid conversation about all things parenting, where perfection is left at the door and real life takes center stage. Stay tuned for more heartfelt, unfiltered discussions in the next episode. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review Momma-sota on your favorite podcast platforms. Your feedback means the world to us. Until next time, this is Monica Eickman signing off. Keep rocking that mom life, and remember, you've got this.